Right, welcome back, guys. MGTOW man, welcome back. We are here with Reverend 20piece. I think this is your third time on, man.
Third or fourth.
Yeah, one of the two. Whether that's
Yeah.
good, we're still gonna get that number higher. But we're also with Happy Humble Hermit, and whether or not you're new
Hey guys.
to MGTOW, what's up? Whether or not you're new to MGTOW or have been around for a while, his content's really blown up in the MGTOW community, and a lot of people are enjoying it. I see his content always getting pushed out on the frequent. So we got him in here, and we're going to try to just bounce some things off of each other and go down a couple topics that we have planned out and see how it goes. I know it's been a while since I had a live stream, I think a couple months, but you got to give me a minute where I'll try to take care of stuff on our life. So thanks for being on, guys.
Hell yeah. Thanks for having me on again.
You were one of my first MGTOW channels. It was you, TFM, and Sandman. So it's pretty cool to bring it full circle and, have a chat with you.
Yeah, that was one of the most interesting aspects of coming to make content. So I'd say the first couple months when I started to get hit up by guys like Jerry Lou, who were very very influential to me, and then a few other, being on TFM's live show a couple months into making content, it was almost kind of surreal, and I was like, should I feel like this I'm making internet YouTube videos about MGTOW, and nobody knows I might not even be a real person, it's like I'm just Sunrise City. So it's really this is really cool, and it's something that we're harnessing this unique time in a positive way, and I don't think MGTOW gets recognized for that enough, because MGTOW really couldn't exist as much as an acronym and without it being the current day. That's one of the positives. So
yeah, I definitely see the YouTube channels as a form of mentorship, because even though we may not have that personal connection with them, I still look up to Sandman and TFM and, John from MGTOW's Freedom. All those guys provide that perspective that I can't get in real life. So I think it's definitely, it is that surreal moment when you get to meet those people, because you look up to them because they give such great advice for you.
yeah, I mean, for me, that's one of the key things too, is that that it's such a unique, MGTOW is so unique because that you're not going to hear this outside of it. So it's like going to, let's say you move to New Orleans and you're like, I really want, or I haven't been to New Orleans for a long time and I'm a huge fan of jambalaya. It's like, to get the best jambalaya, you're going to go to New Orleans. It's like, I have to go there, and that's the only time I can get it. But you're living everywhere else and you only have like 30 minutes a day to get to it. Like MGTOW is that, in a sense, for a lot of truth that is not presented anywhere else. You have to go to these channels, you have to go to these blogs in the recesses of the internet sometimes, and you find this stuff because you've never been told it your whole life, which blows my mind, that this truth has had to exist through this and now,
Oh
yeah, it's definitely go ahead.
Oh, apologize for interrupting, but yeah, it's no, you're right. It's been, I think the knowledge has been there for forever. It's just men haven't been able to communicate on this level until modern times with the internet and everything. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I get that question a lot. I get that question all the time. They're like, so Hoodie, do you think this is new? Like, do you think this is a phase? Is feminism new? Is MGTOW new? What I always say is, it's kind of been injected. We've been injected with this steroid, that's just, it's like an HGH. It's like, this always existed in a lot of guys. You got monks for years. You had red pill minded guys for years. We can read about them. We know about them. We talk about them in some of the MGTOW history videos. The difference is that it's necessary. It's more necessary. It's more applicable now. It's a more feasible lifestyle, and it's just, being conveyed. I mean, when something finally reaches the main, there's a conduit for it. Everybody wants to be a part of it. It's like a recipe, you got a secret recipe. That recipe is waiting to reach the public. That recipe could be the best recipe for pizza in the world, but it's only hidden in this small town in Wyoming. But until somebody gets it and brings it to LA, it's all over the place, and that's kind of what happened.
Well, when you say, Hoodie, when you're saying it's necessary, I think that's today. That's very key because I can't tell you how many MGTOW videos I've watched or content creators have said that, and maybe you have seen this too, but they tell me that they get emails from people saying that MGTOW saved their life, and it definitely. I was never like suicidal per se because of women or anything, but I'd definitely been depressed before, and it helped me figure things out, and just get a clear head. So at least from that perspective, it really helped me out personally.
Yeah, I'm sure you get that all the time. I'm gonna call you H cubed. I'm sure you get that all the time because I know I get emails that MGTOW saved my life from teenagers, and I get it from guys in their 40s. And it's not like, for me, I wouldn't say it was one of those things where, man, I couldn't go forward. It was, I no longer continued to try to analyze things to try to figure out the answer for myself, because you didn't need to, because it was like I said in a recent video, it's like that idea is on the tip of your tongue, but and somebody says, hey, what's this guy's name? And you're like, oh, I know, I read it the other day. It's right there. I can see it visually, but I can't really bring it out. That is where a lot of guys are. They're like right at that tipping point, and they find it, and they no longer are searching their brain. They're no longer just, you're like, oh, I don't have to worry about putting all my thoughts and energy into that and floating around and doing things that I shouldn't do or realize I shouldn't have done once I got this MGTOW content. So that for me was the most amazing part about it.
Yeah, a lot of guys have MGTOW beliefs and they're just not articulated, and that's why the community is so useful, because it creates a community of guys who feel the same way. And I've definitely gotten emails like that before. And I totally understand where they're coming from, because I wasn't ever like suicidal, but I definitely was lost. And MGTOW helped give me a purpose beyond what the society and the culture wants to impose onto me, because I knew I didn't want that. But I mean, if you're fighting the culture and your biology and your friends and family all by yourself, it puts you in a place where you're always on the defensive, and MGTOW allows you to see that you're not the only one, even in today's society. But on my channel, I try to show like historical perspectives, that men have had these ideas of independence and freedom throughout all of civilization, all countries, all of history. And I think that perspective is what allows men to realize, like, hey, MGTOW is not a reaction. It can be a natural way of life.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's, a lot of people think that it is a reaction because it's usually, okay, there's a trigger moment. What is your sob story? What is your tragic moment? What is your divorce? Yes, that does happen, and men realize, I need to do something to fix what happened or to move forward. And so in that case, it's going to be solely labeled as a reaction, but it's never framed as a way of living, because to many people it appears so unnatural. It appears you're giving something away. You are giving up so much of what everyone else pursues, that they think it's just this adverse reaction, and they're having, you're spewing some toxins out of you briefly, and then you'll return to it. And I get that a lot, where don't you think MGTOW is just temporary? Like, if it was just temporary, it's not a lifestyle,
Yeah, well, and it's a good point that you say, Hoodie, about the that you bring up about the reactionary part, especially because unless I'm misunderstanding something or incorrect, everyone on this current hangout, myself included, me, you, and Hermit, none of us have been married, and I really haven't been burned that hard by women. I mean, I have
Actually,
been
no,
burned,
just kidding.
yeah, but I mean, it's like if it was just reactionary, you'd have to be completely screwed over. I I came to it or got into it mainly because of once I started listening to the content, listening to the content producers, what they had to say, it it just made sense to me. And I'm the type of person, I like to understand the world, and I try to understand it the best I can. And that was just another part of helping me understand the world, the MGTOW philosophy and lifestyle.
Yeah, the understanding the world thing is passed over so much because I always try to think about that. Why do a lot of men not understand the world? Why has it been such a secret for so long? Was it that we didn't need to share these things because it was just nature? It was just implied. It was how he acted. There obviously were some aberrant behavior occasionally, but why,
That's the interesting point,
yeah.
because MGTOW wasn't necessary before. And I mean, that's good for society because you can have, the family unit, but is that good for the individual man? And that's the question a lot of MGTOW have to ask themselves, because if they are using MGTOW as a reaction, then I don't think they can find happiness, because they're always going to be looking for things to go back to the way they were, because if they're using MGTOW as a reaction, then as soon as things started to change back to traditionalism, then they'd leave MGTOW.
Mhm.
So if you can find acceptance within MGTOW and realize, hey, even if things were better, I'd always be MGTOW because I love the freedom that being a
Amen. Yeah.
bachelor gives,
Amen to
then you can
that.
find
Yeah.
peace.
Yeah, well, Hermit, I agree 100%. It's not only the freedom that I enjoy more than even the freedom. It was just peace of mind, just understanding how female nature works.
And then
I think
go on.
there's a big challenge with MGTOW, because if you remove all of that stuff that culture and society puts on you, it's good to deprogram yourself, but there's a big challenge there because that does leave a void, and every man has to fill that himself. And that's
Yeah,
when men get stuck, because you freed yourself of female validation, but now what? What do you do with that? And that's the question that I think MGTOW is going to start answering in the coming years, because I think the community goes through cycles, and as we keep getting new men, you have men in the beginning phases, and then as they progress through to the acceptance phase, then you have more content that's more peaceful.
yeah,
Well, and that's the thing. We all have our own personalities, and we already have our own value systems built in, that did exist apart from biological, plantation life or something like that. And then going off another point, one thing I did want to bring up was, yeah, it was not necessary. So if you look at a monk that was living in the fourth century AD, he was making a choice, maybe for spiritual reasons, or maybe he thought it was necessary, was one of the few that thought it was a necessary lifestyle. He, some personality trait, some DNA thing that led him down that life. Um, but for many, it was simply, in order for me to live longer, I need to have a family, or I should pursue having a family, or it, does directly affect my status. It does allow me to, if I have 8 kids, it allows them to work the fields. It allows them to get the cows and to hunt, and it benefits everybody. And I think the communities, there was greater social pressures on individual families and communities to support to have kids, because you were so much more close knit. You'd have groups of 200 people. If you got exiled from that group of 200, the next nearest group of 200 is 50 miles away. and they will not integrate with you at all because that 50 miles is like 2,000 miles today, you know? And that was part of it.
Yeah, I mean, and you're, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but also in the past too, like you were saying, families were closer. I mean, I recently moved, and but even before I moved, I mean, my neighbors back where I moved from, you know, shit, I didn't even know my neighbors. You know, people just aren't interconnected. Real a lot, not everyone, but a lot of people aren't interconnected real tight like that anymore. You know, but I mean, I'm pretty friendly, but some people mistake that the wrong way. You know, they look at me all crazy and shit. You know, but so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that the one of the first barriers for a lot of guys is they have to understand the contentment that they get from MGTOW and the life that they're living from MGTOW. Many of them they get excited about a topic. I don't blame them. They get excited about a realization or a topic and they want to share it. And they think that their excitement's going to be reciprocated by a lot of people, even guys, even some of their best friends, even some of their best dude friends. You know, they think they're going to understand and they're not going to criticize them because this makes sense. And that's not the case, you know?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Believe me, I've told a couple close friends of mine about it and my videos, and they didn't receive it too well. But
Right.
I mean,
You know,
they got my point, but they, you know, they weren't really they weren't feeling it. I mean, of course they got girlfriends and wives and shit. So, but I guess, you know, they're it might be a little harder for them to buy into that.
yeah, go on. Oh, I think you're going to talk, Humble.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, you can't just put your point of view on other people. They have to get there naturally.
What I was getting at there is it's not about convincing people. It's about sharing something, and you have to figure out where, you know, you have to figure out where you're going to talk about it, how it's going to fit into your life, and does it even matter to you that you bring it up? A lot of guys, they think if they value it now, they have to talk about it in order to have that value actualized because they've been so used to things of value in life being actualized through external conversation, you know, through talking to other people, through having them recognize it. And in MGTOW, you are creating more and more in your life that nobody is seeing, or you're creating more and more value, whether it's your hobbies or whether it's what you do at work or in your free time or just something you're working on. You're doing more and more that's likely not going to be seen by people, you know, and that is one of the voids that a lot of guys are not able to get across, that they don't know how to move forward, like you talked about before, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's as far as like sharing MGTOW knowledge, it's definitely, it comes from a good place most of the time. I think guys see that they've gotten so much from the content that they just want to naturally help other men and just say, "Hey, look what I've gotten from this. You could get that too." But I think they don't realize that a lot of guys have to learn from experience, and it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is because men have pride, men have egos, and so we have to let them just, you know, get burned. And the thing is, we can try to minimize the damage to mitigate some of it, but men just have to go through their own trials before they can find MGTOW.
True, some do. Probably a large majority. Unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's one of the unique things that I always talked about. Like when you first learn about MGTOW and you're seeing somebody going down the path that is pretty much straight up contrary to the life that you would live, and maybe you're upset that they're not agreeing with anything you're saying or they don't see your perspective. It's like, I think a lot of guys end up hoping that they actually go through something that makes them turn around and realize. And a lot of presenting content, and I know that all three of us make content, a lot of making that content is purely, you know, cleaning out your own mind and cleaning out your own thoughts, because they lost my train of thought right there, but it
comes from a different place for each guy. So that's why you have the awesome variety in the MGTOW community, because then you have content creators who are in different phases, and so you get different types of content. And I think as long as we're all doing it for altruistic reasons, just trying to help other men, then I think no matter what type of content you make, then it comes from a good place. That's good enough.
Yeah, that's one of this is one of the super delicate things. I remember making my first video, or actually even before I was able to be monetized. This was about late August last year, and I remember I was about to make my first video, and that earned money, and I was like, "Am I doing something wrong?" And some people would say yes, even doing that, and they would say you need to have no benefit from it. It purely needs to be an informational thing. And I'm not going down a rabbit hole talking about that, but a lot of people accuse MGTOW of solely being people that are making content because it's taking advantage of an opportunistic and popular idea at the time. And matter of the fact, it's actually not. It ostracizes you more, and obviously, it sometimes even creates anxiety, about who's going to who's going to jump on you for or doing something and doxing getting rid of your channel and getting rid of the opportunity just to talk. That was the purpose that I made this video, or this channel, was just giving myself a channel to get organic ideas that have been welling up inside me out for people to consume.
Well, as far as guys taking advantage of the MGTOW label, I think MGTOW is strong enough to protect against it. So if you have guys trying to con MGTOW, then they have to get to a point where they have an audience. So that means they have to say something that's true. And I think the two iron rules of MGTOW is that there's no marriage and there's no cohabitation. So if anyone goes against those two principles, then you can kind of tell that they're not really MGTOW, because that's the basic foundations. What you do from there is your own interpretation, but that's like the starting point for MGTOW. And if you take advantage of the label, because it is popular, if you put MGTOW in the title, it's going to get clicks. So I think MGTOW naturally protects itself, because if you're going to be MGTOW, you have to show those two iron principles, and then from there you can still help out men. So even if in the end you're going to take advantage of the MGTOW views in the community, to get to that point, to be able to take advantage, you have to give something back. So even the I don't want to say like fraud MGTOWs, but the guys who started MGTOW and then graduated to something else, at least they still gave something back. That knowledge is still out there.
No, I agree. I agree with that, Hermit. One thing too, also with the monetization, there's no shame in monetization. I don't feel if your time's worth money, Hoodie's time's worth money. Mine is, even though nobody watches my fucking videos. But
hey, man, that those ASMR or whatever ASMR, those things, like I said, dude, that was Martin Scorsese level content. I told you that, and it is.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But I think in the end, anyone who is fairly intelligent can tell the con artists away from the people trying to spread the true message. I don't know. What do y'all think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you can tell based on the passion that they have in a lot of their ideas and the uniqueness of a lot of their content, and how I look at little things like how they title their videos, or you could tell what's going a little clickbait or not. But I think that for me, I respect guys that make this content, because it is an altruistic thing. Ultimately, it's information that can be used. I think where I get bothered is, if I were to get bothered, it's by guys that are not just composing an argument. Like it's clearly ad hominem, or it's clearly projection, and it's not a constructed argument. If you're doing something intellectual, you are sacrificing time, you're sacrificing energy, you're sacrificing mental energy to do this. You know, this is you could be out going drilling the oil fields, making bank, doing I don't know, doing some other thing, hedge fund manager, but you're doing this with your time.
Or just reciting the same stuff over and over, and there's no progression forward. Yeah, understood. That's why
it takes a lot of time. And I mean, it's I think a lot of guys don't understand how much work goes into it, and I think we're gonna see more MGTOW channels continue to come up. And as far as like, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on censorship. I don't know if you guys heard the recent thing with Alex Jones, but where do you think that's gonna go towards MGTOW?
Well, yeah, go ahead, Rev.
I mean, it's the click of someone at YouTube's click of a button, you know, for someone that works at YouTube. I mean, it could happen to anybody, especially if it could happen to him. Alex Jones, I always looked at him as kind of, you know, blowhard. He brought up some good points, and Infowars occasionally broke some good stories, but I still think he should have his right to freedom of speech, whether it's, you know, not when you go down that rabbit hole of, well, you know, YouTube is a private company and all this shit or whatever, but I don't know. It's a very slippery slope, and I am not happy at all that Infowars and Alex Jones lost their channel, and definitely it's a threat out there. You know, we just the counteraction would be to find an alternate platform that can counteract YouTube that's just as good, you know, but I guess it's not out there yet. I don't know.
Yeah, you know how I always look at it is I'm going to continue to make the content, and I realize that at any point, at any day, it could be day for my channel. Even though I keep it as as milquetoast for a lot of people as possible. You know, you know, I even know that it doesn't matter. I could be shut down for whatever reason, you know, and somebody could flag it, and it could be gone, evaporated, you know. And I always mentally prepare for that. It's like a video that I need to make is always gripping tighter to some goal and letting go at the same time. You know, it's like this weird duality.
Yeah, no, and Hoodie too. Like one thing I think is in like my advantage and your advantage and Hermit's advantage is none of us are out here spitting just total bullshit and hate, like, and hating on women, and we're the content creators like us are merely pointing out facts. And I don't know, you know, if they want to shut down the truth, then I guess they can try and do that. But yeah, it's definitely the political climate has definitely changed. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean,
even if guys were hating on women like that, those channels still have a place, you know, because it is so important to have a place to vent. And I think, I mean, if I went through all of my videos, I'm sure I could find some things where I was critical. But that's the thing. If you're going to honestly look at female nature, you have to be critical. So they can there's a difference between just being like, just bashing women and then like being honest and being critical. But the thing is, if they want to, they can conflate both of those together as the same thing. So, I mean, I think MGTOW is limited on the internet. I think the subreddit is going to be banned, and I think the MGTOW channels, because I've talked about this a little bit, but I think they could easily censor MGTOW because we use all the keywords, you know, so they can just search for MGTOW or plantation or any of the other keywords we use and just censor all of it at once. And I think that's what's coming. I think it's only going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, actually, you had me like starting to get kind of paranoid earlier this morning because I was listening to your call-in session when I woke up at like 5 a.m. You were still on, and you were talking about the IP addresses and the domain and everything, and I was like, oh fuck, man, I got some work to do. But yeah, it's scary. It's definitely scary.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that can be done to, that has to be done in order to protect a lot of people, and that's one thing. I mean, I always do live with an element of paranoia, regardless if, I think that all my content is made with thought behind it and with reason behind it. Um, but it's the association element. There's other guys that don't even make MGTOW content, but make generally political content, off-grid content, spiritual content, and that's gonna get that's gotten shut down too. It doesn't even necessarily have to do with your message, and it doesn't even have to do with what you've talked about. A lot of the people, they're not listening to what you're saying. A lot of it is a bot. I don't really know how they generate it. Sometimes maybe it's flagged by a direct person that has a vendetta against you or has listened to content and doesn't agree with what you say or think it's hate speech. But a lot of the times it just has to do with your tags even. So it's like it's such a fragile thing. And for guys that can establish themselves and make their own websites, and I know that there are guys that are trying to do that, and they can really push concept to that direction. They have the best of all worlds because they can control their own destiny. And I think that's kind of a microcosm of what MGTOW tries to create. Everybody's trying to diminish the amount of dependence that they have on people outside of themselves and things outside of themselves. That's the ultimate goal for a lot of guys in MGTOW, I think.
Yeah. I mean, my personal goal is just, inner peace mainly. And I've came as close to that since viewing the MGTOW stuff, the philosophy, living the philosophy and lifestyle. That has been this point in time in my life has probably been the closest that I've had to inner peace. And I'm not a real religious person, although I think religion is a good thing and plays a good role in a lot of people's lives. But yeah, it definitely helped me out a lot. Faux show. So let's see.
Well, and just going back on that more. What I was kind of getting at
Oh,
there, MGTOW is like a microcosm of men that are going their own way. So it's like I think of it in a sense like, although a lot of guys aren't going off the grid or doing that type of thing or trying to cut ties with dependence on society, men that go their own way, they have to create that independence in all areas of their life. And so I was making that parallel with being on YouTube or being on your own blog or own private channel, and you have value. You have created enough value for yourself in your life that you don't need somebody else to be there.
See, yeah, that's
Oh.
I understand, but like we can look at it practically. Let's go back to Alex Jones. His site, his Infowars site, has been down most of the week. So even though he got removed off of all of the platforms, and he still had his own platform, that was taken away too because they deemed it a threat and they tried to shut that website down. So I think MGTOW going their own way, removing yourself from the society protects you naturally. But as far as reaching back into that plantation after you freed yourself, going back to free men off the plantation, that still puts you at risk and you still have to play by the rules of the people on the plantation. So I think the only way to really become independent is to totally just go ghost, just ghost the whole system.
And that depends on what your goal is. I think that a lot of guys, I think if you look at it, sorry, this dog that I'm watching is going, hey,
Just shitting on a carpet.
trying to get in the way of my thoughts. That's what it's doing. Like this interference. I think that it depends on what you value, though, too. I think that if you're trying to, completely protect and ghost, that's what you have an end goal. And I think that there's some guys that are like, I won't pursue the things that MGTOW says not to, and I will do my all to put myself out there and potentially put myself at risk to help other people. So it's like you have freedom for the sake of completely removing yourself, and then you have freedom to allow yourself to help other guys. So I
Yeah.
think it can go both ways.
No, I agree. I mean, and as much as an asshole, some people, I don't know what you guys think, but some people think I am. I really do try to help people, and I, I, I talk to, I work with a lot of younger guys. Most of them are in their, most of them are under 30, and I don't really call it MGTOW, but I try to spread the red pill knowledge, to them without necessarily going down the MGTOW lane. But it's and a lot of them are seeing the same shit that MGTOW talks about, the same exact shit. It's just they're coming to it for I guess through naturally, I guess through because of the way fucking society has went. How's that dog treating you, Hoodie?
I just muted myself down for a while.
Yeah, I had to step out earlier for like a minute to get rid of my dogs too. They're it's kind of like an anti-stream organism, pets. They just interrupt.
Absolutely. I don't know. It ain't my pet, by the way, but but personally, yeah, talking to younger guys, in public, in real, in life, I don't really concern myself with delivering these things unless it truly comes up. I try to ghost as much as I can and just play the game, and that's how it is, and and
I'm the same as well. I never use the acronym MGTOW, and I really only give advice if guys ask for it, because most people don't want to hear advice. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So I live by that. But I mean, if you just go up spouting off red pills, people aren't ready for that. And my opinion is, like, they have the internet. That's the greatest source any of us have today. And if they can't look up questions, if you ask any basic questions about relationships or women or anything, you'll eventually find MGTOW and the red pill and the manosphere. So they have those options. So I just give back through the channel because it's safe. I'm not putting myself at risk too much. As far as talking about in real life, I really don't do that at all.
Yeah. Well, Hermit, just for clarification, I mean, I'm not out going out of my way to talk to guys, or they come to me and there's some problem going on, or we'll talk about it, and things like that, because subordinates mine, guys I'm in charge of, and I'll just talk about life. But yeah, I'm not there actively promoting it, so to speak, but I do. It does come up from time to time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the general practice I think that I would take with anything in life. Like you said, like, the student will be ready. I think the main thing is acquiring as much information that you think is valuable for your life every day. And if somebody happens to need it, somebody happens to ask you a question, letting, as the baseball or football or basketball euphemism, or not euphemism, but metaphor line, whatever, is not a metaphor now I think about it. Let the game come to yourself. It's let it come to yourself, and I think that indicates confidence in yourself. And I think, if it does come up, to give some advice about why you live the life that you do, or why why you invest a certain way, or what jobs you pursue, or why you live in a certain area, because I think that everybody in MGTOW has a different take on that, but I think a lot of the same tenets are there. Yeah, you bring it up, but I know for you mentioned, and you just read your channel. I mean, you talk about other things like economics and geopolitics and stuff. Hermit, what in particular are you interested in that realm?
Well, that's the thing. Like, MGTOW is such a big tent issue. So because MGTOW is a man's life. That's what it is. It's a man's path through life. And that incorporates so much. So you can talk about philosophy and economics and politics and practical stuff like diet and building positive habits. All of that stuff is MGTOW because it affects you in the individual space. So, but my interest, I I like reading and I like philosophy, so I try to incorporate that on my channel. And I do mostly scripted stuff, but I followed other MGTOW channels, especially Darius. I don't know if you watch Darius, but I love his call-in shows, and I started doing the call-ins, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I've done a couple, I think 3 streams with Darius. Yeah. Yeah, he's a firecracker.
I mean, that's the beauty of MGTOW, isn't it? You know, because we have all types. We literally have almost every type of MGTOW across the whole world too. Isn't Jerry Lou's in China?
No,
So
and he's in
is
LA. Yeah.
he's I mean, you got people all over the place. So it's my interest, because I have a lot of interests, so I just I try to incorporate all of those into MGTOW. And I never try to push things that aren't MGTOW into MGTOW. But most things can be a part of MGTOW.
I was just having a question about a specific element of economics or specific topical interests that you have that you kind of weave in. Like, I know a lot of people mention my content and say like Christianity or spiritual element, or young MGTOW, and it's like, yeah, I mean, I talk about that stuff, and it's one of my favorite topics I like to tie in. But is there like a specific topic point that you kind of said, hey, I really have kind of a background and expertise in this that I think I can help?
Um, yeah, I'd say it's the philosophical thing. I've read a lot of philosophical books, and I'd say I really incorporate a lot of aspects of Buddhism into my channel. And I think the biggest thing that, because it guides me, and then naturally that guides my content, is the concept of yin and yang. You know, just having a balance in everything. I try to incorporate that into my channel. That's really the guiding principle with all of my videos and thoughts.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's fair. Is there a particular philosophy that you read a lot? I mean, obviously you mentioned tenets of Buddhism, but and other particular books that were influential to you, or particular thinkers, or you know.
I'd say the most prominent one is Aristotle. I'd say I like Aristotle. I have a lot of quotes lined up that I want to use for him, but I'd say Aristotle. And even though, like, because he had daughters, so he's not fully MGTOW. But I think a lot of guys who are able to see on the other side, they gone on to the plantation and then they look back on their younger years. I think that has a lot of value for passing down knowledge, because that's like an honest look. They had the family, they had everything they were supposed to have, and then they look back and see that they missed out on their freedom, on their bachelorhood. And I think that's more of an honest look, you
Mhm,
know, because they're being honest with themselves.
mhm. Well, that's the thing. I mean, I don't discount a lot of times people criticize MGTOW content producers for referencing guys that are married or have kids, and I'm like, discounting the amount of knowledge that they have. The majority of those guys are smarter than me intellectually, you know? I just do something different with my life, for me to say that I can't, heed from them, and sometimes they have a perspective that does line up with the MGTOW perspective, or there's some regrets, and hey, that Aristotle is, I see him brought up. I see Aristotle, so many lines from Aristotle brought up, Sun Tzu all the time. TFM's big with Sun Tzu, and same with DDJ. What was the first time that you ever came across a MGTOW video? Do you remember that?
The first time I came across a MGTOW video, um, yeah, it's Sandman. Yeah, Sandman was my introduction. I first found the Red Pill subreddit, and I was there before MGTOW. And when I first found MGTOW, because on the Red Pill subreddit, they often conflate MGTOWs with incels. So when
Mm,
I first heard of MGTOW, I didn't
awesome.
really know what it was. I just was going with, on the Red Pill subreddit, So I always thought it was incels. And then I looked into it and I realized these guys aren't incels at all. These guys are beyond the pickup artist crap that's on the red pill, because I really liked the self-improvement aspect of the red pill. And I think you brought up entrepreneurship and cars earlier. I don't know if you saw the podcast that he had with TFM on.
Yep.
But I think that's the biggest divide, because I love that self-improvement aspect, but then they do it for women. So they're building their foundations on sand because women are fickle creatures. So that's the big conflict that TFM had with the Redman group, because everything they said, they were saying some really good things, but they were all doing it in pursuit of women, and it was all dependent on women's validation. And I think that is the big divide. And eventually I left the Red Pill subreddit pretty early on, and then just graduated to MGTOW and with Sandman. And then from Sandman, then I found John from MGTOW's Freedom, and then TFM. I think TFM is my favorite MGTOW creator because he's challenged me in two very big ways. The first was the sex doll thing, because before I found TFM, I had the image of the blow up doll in my head, right? That's because I didn't even look into it. I thought that's what it was. I didn't know that the industry had advanced so much. So then I saw his sex doll and I was like, okay, I understand his perspective. I judged him at first, I was against it. Then I saw it and then I listened to what he said and I understood his perspective. And then the second thing was his plan for removing women's voting rights and all that stuff. And again, when I first heard that, when I was new to MGTOW, I had the knee-jerk reaction, like that's too extreme. And then I listened to the argument and the facts that he presented, and then I came to that same conclusion as well. So I've definitely learned a lot more beyond just like female nature from TFM, and he's definitely challenged me in ways that I think is positive for the MGTOW community. Because if you're not opening yourself up to ideas that contradict and conflict with your reality, then I think you can't really grow in any meaningful way.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, if you just totally shut out foreign ideas or ideas you're not familiar with, then that's not the right answer. But I was curious though, with the sex doll thing, what your take on it though overall is, just because I really don't care if anybody uses sex dolls. It's not my that's kind of like almost a too much information thing for me. But I personally kind of thought it might be to an outsider. I mean, MGTOW is already going to look foreign to an outsider, but I just thought the sex doll thing might be a little over the top, But I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I don't have one, so I can't really speak to it. But I mean,
I meant the videos and the promotion.
The videos, I mean,
yeah, and the promotion.
A lot of guys in the MGTOW community right now currently are borderline incel, and I think the best thing for them is to become, if they are the TFLers, the True Force Loneliness guys, or the incels, the best thing for them is MGTOW, because then they can go beyond needing women. And I think that's the big difference between incels and MGTOW, is that an incel would totally forsake everything he learned from us if a woman looked in his direction. And if a sex doll can help those guys reach their peace of mind, I mean, more power to them. I mean, I never want to remove options for men.
Good point.
I think, in my opinion, I think the only sex dolls that look decent are the Asian ones, because all the other ones look pretty. I mean, the Uncanny Valley is pretty. It's not. They haven't overcome it yet with that, but I think maybe that's just a preference, but I mean, if they gave me a doll for free, I'd give it a review of it. But I mean, I don't know. I don't need a doll, because again, like a lot of MGTOW guys, there's a big divide. I'm not celibate, so that brings up a lot of, at least on my channel, a lot of hate. from some guys, and because some guys believe that if you're not MGTOW monk, then you're not MGTOW at all. And I mean,
Exactly.
that's I don't
I don't
agree with
believe that.
that, but I
Yeah.
mean, you're always gonna have those extremist guys no matter what.
Man,
So
I go by the tenets you mentioned earlier. Don't get married, don't cohabitate. That's the two main things. Beyond that, if you want to add to it or whatever, I guess they can have the different levels of MGTOW or whatever. And I respect the monks wholeheartedly. I mean that's a lot of discipline to go down that road. But it's not necessarily what I practice. I'm not saying I'm getting fucking pussy left and right, but it's just occasionally, I like the company of a woman.
yeah, I mean, and I enjoy monk mode. I think I made a video about this. I have like 3 phases.
Yeah.
So I alternate between like monk mode for like about half the year for 5-6 months out of the year, and then I like go and maybe get some friends with benefits, or maybe a little short relationship for like 2 to 3 months. It's whatever floats your boat, whatever works within your own personal system, as long as you maintain your freedom and your sovereignty, and as long as you uphold those 2 rules of MGTOW. As long as you're not getting married and you're not cohabitating and you're not getting women pregnant, you're good. But as far as sex dolls, I mean, I don't know. I can't criticize it.
No, I'm not criticizing it. I just was my whole thing with it was it. I'm not knocking it or anything really. I mean, it was just to me. It seems like MGTOW is already going to get criticized whenever if the mainstream ever catches on to it, which they're slowly catching on, and more news articles are coming out. But it's like somebody from the outside coming in is gonna be like, well, fuck, you already got these guys who are misogynist, which we're not. And then oh, they want to, the sex style thing. I don't know, but
I think that's a strength.
I'll be right back, guys. Just FYI, I gotta go to the bathroom.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the strength of it, because
Yeah.
MGTOW naturally protects against all that bullshit, so it filters out the people who aren't open-minded. So if a guy stumbles upon TFM and he sees the sex doll and he just leaves, that, I mean, sucks for him. Like, he's gonna be stuck on the plantation if he can't be honest with himself. And as far as mainstream media, they're gonna misrepresent us anyways, even if we didn't have sex dolls in the community. Like, they would be misrepresenting everything we said anyways, regardless. So
good point.
I think the most dangerous thing is that conflation with MGTOW and incel, because they use incels. When the last, what was it, the attack in Canada, the guy he was like an incel, and he had like a terrorist attack. When that happened, all those articles talking about him, because he admitted he was an incel, they had MGTOW in those articles. They tried to conflate MGTOW with those people. And I think that's the big danger. And I think, honestly, that's what's going to bring the censorship, is when the mainstream media does finally address MGTOW and they conflate it with incels, and they use that as a justification to shut us down, because we're advocating for terrorism or something. Because the incel subreddit was shut down for advocating violence, and that could easily happen to the MGTOW subreddit, and that could easily happen to the MGTOW community on YouTube. So I think that is the avenue for how they will censor us, and that's why I think that's the important distinction to make between MGTOW and incel. I think that's important, but everything else, like if a guy wants to have a silicone doll, that's his priority, and if guys don't like it, I know a lot of guys don't like it. When I first found it, I thought it was weird, and then I opened my mind up to it. But most people aren't open-minded, but I think it'll filter out those people who give it a chance, and then you'll get the best audience.
Tracking. Yeah, and I agree with you too, especially with the incel thing, that it could, between incel and MGTOW, it could turn into guilt by association, or whatever, or maybe not even association, just misrepresentation. The censorship thing, that's worried me quite a bit. I thought it was going to come down really hard this year. I mean, on MGTOW, it's come down, on other content producers, but so far it hasn't. But I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's gonna. I mean, anyone critical of the left is going to get censored. And I know a lot of MGTOW guys are apolitical, and that's what it is. MGTOW is apolitical. So I've had guys call in who are like former socialists and liberals and stuff. Anyone, it's not about politics, but I know a lot of MGTOW channels do address politics, and I do sometimes. So anybody who criticizes feminists or the left or women or anything like that is going to be censored. So it's I'm not worried about it, because I have all my videos backed up, and because they will shut it down eventually. So once they do shut it down, and maybe if I can't make an alternate account, I'll just ride off into the sunset because I gave back.
Yeah, so be it. I mean, I actually, I've asked that question before. I was wondering if, is MGTOW really sustainable, in the long term? Are guys going to go back to plantation? I've been tempted myself, and many times, and sometimes it's a hard, for me at least, to maybe not stay away from marriage and cohabitation, but just, I don't know. It can be a difficult thing at times, but
It is
between
and
that and then the censorship and the government,
that's the big goal of my channel, is to get guys out of the reactionary MGTOW phase into accepting MGTOW. Because if you're using MGTOW as a reaction, then once MGTOW is gone off the internet and there's no one there to give you daily doses of red pills, you're going to eventually go back to the plantation. But if you learn to love the bachelor lifestyle, which is what I was before, even before I found MGTOW, I realized I never wanted to get married. As far as kids go, like, I don't hate kids, but I just, I could live without them. But I knew early on I never wanted to get married. So that being a bachelor is, I think, the safest type of MGTOW, because there are many different types of MGTOW. But if you're a bachelor MGTOW, then that means no matter what happens to the community, you're always going to stay on that path of freedom. And you can still interact with women, but you're a bachelor. And most guys don't like being bachelors. Most guys want a family and a wife, which is totally natural. You're not trying to destroy your biology, destroy your natural urges. You just have to be honest with them and look at them honestly, and then make a conscious decision. Use your brain, your big head, and
Yes.
think.
That's
and
the tough
think,
part.
do I want a family? Like, I mean, because if you're gonna have it now, then I think you're not being honest with yourself. But a lot of guys, if things were back to like the 1940s, the 1950s, a lot of guys would go back and have a family, which is totally normal. That's being a normal man. Honestly,
Yeah.
that's a normal thing to do. But I mean, if you're stuck in that phase, then you're always going to be wishing for the 1940s and the 1950s. You're always going to be wishing for that, and you're not going to find happiness. As far as today, if you have a wife and family today, I think you're kind of crazy. But
I agree.
That's, guys, it's so tough, and we can offer our opinions, but ultimately guys have to figure that out for themselves. And that's why MGTOW is so powerful, and that freedom is so dangerous, because I mean, the philosophy is the most individual philosophy I've ever seen. It is entirely dependent on the individual, and most guys don't know what to do with that amount of power, because most of us are social creatures, and we look to others for input and guidance. And that's where the YouTube channels come in. They're mentorships, but it's if you have that great power of the freedom and you haven't actualized it in any way, I think you're going to eventually long for that family, because that gives you purpose. You have to go out there and provide for the wife and the children. So that gives you a tangible goal to strive towards. And when that's removed, that void comes into play where you don't have anything to strive towards. And I think guys need to create tangible things to strive all of their efforts towards. And then while simultaneously working towards their spiritual elevation.
No, yeah, I totally agree. The you did bring up the point though about the about children, and I actually that's kind of ironic because I eventually got to the point in my life where I didn't have any kids, and I was like, you know what, I don't want to be going to a high school graduation when I'm 60 years old. So
Why not, bro?
I might have mentioned this on another stream. I don't remember, Hoodie. Sorry. Correct. You can just shut me down if I'm.
No, you go, man. We got 158 people in the box here. You say what you want.
But it was Hermit. I was listening to a stream that Hermit had recorded earlier. It was where that guy called in about to snip or not to snip, and it's a personal decision. But I had a vasectomy, but I just got to the point where that's not what I wanted out of life, and I'm not advocating that for everyone, but it's a personal decision, and I don't know. I don't even know why I'm bringing it up, but it just
yeah, I mean, because
I like the video.
That topic was controversial, and that's why I put it up. A lot of people don't agree with his path, and I don't advocate for it or against it because I like men having options. I've thought about it seriously, getting a vasectomy. I just, I didn't want to do it because it doesn't give the protection that I think most guys realize. Because if you get that, then you still can't have unprotected sex because the STD rates are crazy. That's stupid to do that. And then it doesn't have the legal protection because, the consent laws are so retarded nowadays. So she can revoke consent or still commit paternity fraud because guys who have proof that it's not their kids still end up paying for other guys' kids. So honestly, like the only thing it does is like give you peace of mind, which is totally fine if it does that. But I think overcoming that on your own, because going back to those old philosophers, the best ones didn't have children. Aristotle had children, but a lot of like Plato and a lot of the French philosophers, they didn't have children, and they did that without vasectomies. So they controlled their biology with their minds, and I think that's the best route to take.
It's when you think about it, it's quite a feat. It's quite an accomplishment. I think that going into whatever challenges that you have in your life, going into certain things you want to accomplish, competition with other people, work, learning something new, a skill. I think that amongst other people, and I think that for yourself, being able to harness your urges and go against kind of a biological leaning for something greater, in many cases, really gives a lot of guys a mental edge. You're standing amongst, you're going against somebody with a great mind, with great accolades, and they've fallen short in ways that you were able to surpass with your own mental strength. And I think that says a lot. And I think that doing that and framing it that way for men that can do that gives them a lot of confidence. And I know for me, that's one of the elements of MGTOW confidence, that quiet confidence that a lot of guys take into their daily lives if they are still very much, in the matrix, so to speak.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I'll touch one more point on the vasectomy thing because I was just looking at the comments.
They hating on you?
I don't know. I mean, just looking at some comments. Haters gonna hate. I don't think they're haters, but they're just making their own comments. It's all good. Look, I mean, getting a vasectomy, if you're like 20 years old or even 30 or younger, that I didn't do it back then. I mean, I waited till I was in my late 30s. And at some point, everyone has to make a decision. And regardless of the STD factor or whatever, I just I really don't like children anyway, and let alone being fucking 40 years old having a kid. So I don't know. Yeah, y'all aren't here yet, but it does not get easier the older you get. It gets harder physically and mentally and everything. But That's why MGTOW, self-improvement, keep hitting them weights, keep exercising, keep eating right, and quality of life, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see that incline bench press action back there, or whatever that is, Rev. No, but seriously, that is what you have to do, and I think that it's a lot of guys that go their own way. I think that there are two extremes. A lot of guys that have established themselves and have been able to create confidence in things that they do in life. They will take care of their body. They will value it. They will work out. They will eat well. And hey, do what you want. You can go either spectrum. But I think that a lot of guys that, in my experience, that are very new into MGTOW and into MGTOW content, they might experience that red pill malaise like I've talked about before, where for me it was never really a rage thing. I don't know if that's just it's a personality thing or the fact that I had never been quote unquote burned. It was more of if anything, it would just be okay, a haze. So a lot of guys drift into that experience where they're not taking care of their body. They don't value it. They don't eat well. They say I can just eat Doritos and Pepsi for the rest of my life. It's not really going to impact anything. That's something that I've come across as well. And I've heard from a lot of guys that are very genuinely depressed, and a lot of guys that probably have reached out to me with very positive emails. When you respond to 2,300 or so emails in a year, you remember a lot of the guys that are very positive and say, you've uplifted me. And you wonder how many 2 or 3 months later that has, reversed, or that's reverted, or they completely retract what they've said. And, and you have to let that go yourself. You're not going to be, changing your mind as a content producer in that respect. But it's very dangerous for a lot of guys initially. Some are in that red pill rage, and that's almost better for their advancement in life because sometimes it propels them to do. But for the guys in the red pill malaise, I suspect that some might say, oh, they're just in the grief phase that TFM talks about, and they'll get out of it. But that's a dangerous place for some of them. So,
yeah, both are the grief and the rage. It's neither one are healthy. You gotta, in my opinion, I'm with you. I never went through the rage phase, which, I mean, I know some people would disagree with as far as like saying that you have to go through that. I didn't. I kind of just got fed up with the bullshit is a phase, and then I mean, yeah, the grief I have is grief of not in the past. It's grief of like knowing what I know now, that even if I fucking want a relationship, that I know the way through the MGTOW knowledge, I know the way things are, and that it's just it's most likely not going to work out, and that's very disheartening, but I can accept that.
mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly. Are there any particular, speaking of TFM, are there any particular videos that really struck a chord with you, Hermit? Because I talked to so many guys, and TFM is, I give it up to him. I mean, and DDJ, both of those guys they're very intellectual, and they're very good at composing arguments, and they know so much about so many things. So honestly, for me, it's feel like, why would you listen to what I'm saying? Are there any videos that that you really enjoy?
Specific videos, I'm trying to think. DDJ's deconstruction of the Duluth model was probably recently the most impactful one because I've had experience with that. So for him to do that, I mean, I've seen what he's saying, and it is totally true. And then I think TFM's Muckynomics series is great. Sandman's, I can't think of a specific one because I watch so many of them, but I know when Big John from MGTOW's Freedom, when he brought out the whiteboard, those videos were awesome. Whenever he used the whiteboard,
Yeah.
but I I think the message of all the different videos, they build on each other. So I don't really have like a list of like specific videos because all of the topics eventually blend together between all the creators. And I think, I mean, at least my MGTOW diet is pretty varied. I'm subscribed to almost every MGTOW channel, everyone that I can find.
Yeah, I mean, for me to say that there's one video that I always go back to, I don't have one of those. I have a lot of liked videos that come up, but I do remember the segue into my MGTOW discovery, so to speak. I brought up a lot. I don't know if anybody listening or you guys know of a guy named Elliot Holson. He made a
Yeah.
So he made a MGTOW response video, but 2 years ago or so, I had been watching his non-job revolution things because he's an entrepreneur, and I was interested in that element. And I continually saw MGTOW referenced in the recommended section, and I clicked, and I clicked on it, and it had a convincing title. And ever since then, it was like a 30-day kind of nonstop consumption of it. But after that, I don't really consume a lot of content. I think part of it is a time thing. I don't have a lot of time to actually consume content or to read or even to add information, which is unfortunate. But I think that some of the ones, what's that?
Well, there's a lot more out there now too. So,
well, yeah. And, and I wouldn't even say that I'm like you, humble Hermit. I was very much the MGTOW mindset resonated with me and had been lived out for many years of my life. But the urge to create content was there upon hearing MGTOW as well. But I thought that one of the most beneficial things for me was taking a year to just continually digest the content and not make any content. I didn't make any content for a year. I just sat dark and consumed it and dwelled on it. And it's amazing the things that just come up in your daily thoughts that, I'm going to write that down. I'm going to talk about it, because MGTOW you're not doing any mental gymnastics. You're just talking about what comes to you because there's so much truth intertwined in it. But other guys like Immortal Minds isn't talked about a lot, who is very, very influential for me. M Crafts as Rev talked about, and Jerry Lou, I think personality wise and age wise definitely resonates. But we're definitely in an interesting position, you and I, Hermit, with our age making content, and I think it does help us reach a certain element, a certain group. Excuse me. The kids in high school sometimes and in their 20s, because it's a pivotal time in their life. But it also keeps me humble personally, because I know I'm going to look back in 6 years and say, I don't know what I was talking about, Yeah.
Hey, I disagree. Well, I think you're wrong. Well, about that part, Hoodie, because what you guys are providing is a vital service to young men that I did not get back in the 1980s and 1990s. And I appreciate it, and I hope the young men who get to see your videos appreciate it. That's so.
I think
thanks, Rev. Sorry about
a lot of guys have that's why I put the word humble in my title, because the majority of my audience, because I could see the statistics, most of the men watching are older than me. So I think because you have to humble yourself, because a lot of people, especially in my personal life, that's why I started making the videos, because I realized I can reach more people, and people who want to listen will actually, click on the video and listen. Because in my life, when I've been around guys older than me and I give them like my perspective and advice, they look down on it or don't take it seriously because of my age. And because my opinion is that there are three types of people: people who learn from observation, people who learn from experience, and people who don't learn at all. And I try to combine my personal observations with my personal experiences. And it's important to have your own experiences. But, I've never been married, so I have to delegate that to other guys who have been married and listen to their stories. So it definitely, you always have to humble yourself when you're listening to other people's perspectives. And just like as I said earlier, the manosphere is big enough for everyone, because Elliot Hulse, he's he was probably my favorite channel when I found the red pill first, and he's really awesome. And the fact that he addressed MGTOW, you know, it comes from, that's when, like, going back to like MGTOW filters out the bullshit. It comes from a different place, because he could be using that for views, because he is married. I don't know if he has children, but I know he's married. So he could be just saying that because MGTOW is blowing up right now. But even if he is just saying that, giving that attention still benefits MGTOW, and talking about MGTOW, even if you don't mean it, is still good, because I mean, it's eternal truths that men will always find. And you know, that's the benefit of the YouTube community, because I definitely sat on the knowledge for a long time before I put my hat in the ring. So because I didn't want to just like talk out of my ass, you know.
You don't want to act like me, Roger. Hey, what you said though, Hermit, though, is so fucking true. This knowledge is eternal, as long as it's preserved and communicated. At least as far as I feel. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw it, but I made this video, I think like a month or two ago, about a samurai guy called Miyamoto Musashi, and he wrote 2 books, and one of the books is basically just like 21 or 22 bullet points. And if you read the bullet points, it's basically a MGTOW like manifesto. And that was in feudal Japan.
That's
so these things,
DDJ's like favorite.
it is? No.
Yeah, I believe he's I think he's I don't know about favorite. I think he's referenced it before. It could be wrong though. I remember it from like a conversation he had with Human. I could be wrong.
Damn, I gotta go listen to that.
I don't want to be quoted, so
yeah. I mean, I'm finishing up, because a lot of the longer content takes a while to get through. I'm finishing up the TFM and Human discussion. I don't know if you guys listen to that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But I mean, it is eternal, because guys, I mean, female nature is so exposed and allowed to run rampant in the worst ways today. But even in the older times when it was controlled, because you can't change female nature, but you can control it to allow society to function properly. So even though it was controlled in the past, the things that naturally come up from females always happen. You know, they always throw shit tests. They always nag their husbands. They always require more than they give back. These things are universal, and all men go through this stuff. But it's that nowadays we're getting stuff that is, you know, it's the worst parts of the female nature. And I don't think all of female nature is bad. You know, I don't hate women.
I agree.
I understand them, and they can provide some good aspects with their maternal instincts. But as far as their interactions with men, you know, it's a transactional experience. You know, it's tangible things exchanged for metaphysical love that men project onto women. You know, it's not, they don't reciprocate those feelings that you give to them. And that's a universal red pill, because it's not dependent on feminism or 2018. That goes all the way back to Adam and Eve.
Well, they might still love you, but they love you in a different way than you love them. Yeah. Basically.
Yeah, that's one of the most important dichotomies that's not realized.
And I never understood that when I was young.
No. So. You know that, like, yeah, that one is one of the key points, and the first points that I think that men that come to MGTOW realize is that we are thinking that their minds are operating exactly like ours are, and a lot of guys, yeah, that's, you know, it's like, why don't you understand? Like, and they'll say the same thing about guys, but when you reflect and you think back about that, and you think about it, you see the transactional element in it, and it's not a cynical thing. It's labeled as misogynistic cynicism, but if anything, a lot of our MGTOW guys are, at least I would like to said, they're like less misogynistic in what they say than a lot of the blue pill guys, which is the irony of it. It's just that isn't understood because the MGTOW tag is associated with misogyny in a lot of senses, but it's one of the first truths. The transactional element, Briffault's law, is such an important thing for men to understand, and there are a couple of videos about it, and Stardust is one of the guys that's talked about it a number of times, and Thinking Ape is, some people know him, but I don't know. I'm assuming you really enjoy his content, Hermit.
Yeah, him and Coltane and Spetsnaz.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the OGs. I think a lot of people don't like Sandman, and I really like Sandman,
Mm-hmm.
and I think
he's a great dude.
I think he's like the most objectively valuable person in the MGTOW community, just for the effort he puts in.
What I really respect is that effort, for sure. I think he does get a bit of criticism because he's been labeled the McDonald's of MGTOW, because, well, that's what happens. You make content every day. For 10 minutes, doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to go to the depths that some of Stardust videos do. It's just the nature of the beast, and you can't expect that. But he introduces a lot of topics and he summarizes them well, and he's very objective. Like you said, he's very fair. He gets also a bad rap for part of it is the presentation that he has, and so it's viewed as boring, or it's viewed as, like a lot of people are saying, robotic, and he's viewed as not having personality. But if you listen to his interviews with people, he is one of the most personable, reasonable, affable guys that I've heard interviewed in MGTOW.
I owe a lot to Sandman, and I will never disrespect him, because he's the in a big way, because he's the guy. He's the first content producer I watched, and I listened to his videos for basically about 3 to 4 weeks straight. Just once I started hearing his content and how it was all the truth that was within it, So yeah, Sandman. I mean, he's not. Nobody's saying he's the greatest content producer, but he definitely has a lot of influence, and it's well deserved.
And I know he's got, I don't know how many videos now, well over 1,000, obviously. I think over 2,000. But he is a gateway into a lot of new ideas, and so a lot of
he's
people,
the marijuana of MGTOW.
he is the marijuana that Reverend 20piece is coined. I think your channel is gonna explode if you make that video. I think you need to do that as soon as the stream ends. Okay, I was just kidding. But
where do you go after that, though? After
that is
who's the LSD? Who's the?
I think you need to make a tree, a little graph to illustrate this now. Okay. All right. So anyway, that is valuable. I mean, the sense that the sense that he has, and the ability for him to direct other guys to bigger, to more in-depth videos on certain topics like Briffault's law, hypergamy, the Nawalt, go on and on about that. He serves that purpose, and he is the gateway a lot of, as I said.
Yeah, he's the gateway, and then Paul Proteus, he's the cocaine of MGTOW, and then you kind of just keep going. M. Crafts,
he's just the nicotine. Remember, he's always lighting up those cigarettes.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you guys how has MGTOW changed your perspective on other things besides women, because I know the big things for me is like movies and television and stuff like that. My favorite movies. Now I see how blue pill those things are. And then the second thing is like traditional like academic stuff. Like you realize all those supposed researchers and intellectuals, they don't know shit, because if they don't have those basic um red pills of biology itself, they can still offer like good insight into their specializations, but like those guys if they are faced with those big level issues, MGTOW really has become a space for real intellectual discussions that the rest of the
Oh,
outside world
exactly.
is now disintegrating.
Well, and I'm just
Exactly.
gonna interject real quick. It's the thing is, it's the why. Like MGTOW fills the why gap in a lot of things. So it's like, even we don't understand. So women that have a certain like the a curvature and there's a curvature and there's a curved spine, or like they say like the thigh gap thing, or like, or the desired physique. The reason is, during pregnancy, it allows them to bear more weight when they're foraging for bushes, or foraging in bushes and foraging for fruit and acquiring food. It's like it comes down to survival. And it's like that is not a gap that is crossed. That there's like, it's just pure animalistic instinct a lot of times. And it's, I'm attracted to what I'm attracted to, but they're not asking this question why. And if you just ask the question why, it brings forth a lot of answers, and you go down certain paths and learn more about it, and you learn like about biology, and you'll learn about, wow, that actually influenced social structure for years and years, and occupations. And that's where that has changed my mind for sure.
What about you, Reverend?
Uh,
Because I know
yes.
it ruined MGTOW has ruined many of the things I used to like, music, movies, television.
Oh,
You see
well,
through all that stuff, but then it also, the things that are honest and real, it makes them even better.
no, no. Hey, I agree. Knock my mic over. The I, yeah, I guess when you're talking about that, it's like I'll watch a movie that I watched 20 or 30 years ago, and I completely see it differently than I used to. So that's
Oh, so
that's
true.
one thing that's changed. And then music also, whether it's old music or new music, and that was actually a series I was thinking of doing. So and I'll, if somebody wants to steal my idea, they can. But I wanted to, I'm wanting to start doing a series on MGTOW music, where I dissect videos and just shoot down fucking some of these, or promote or shoot down some of these older songs. But like Jay-Z's "Can I Get a," that is like one of the most MGTOW songs ever. But it's just, I don't know. I it's like you're seeing things through a completely different lens, and um, it. I think it's an advantage. Personally, I think that you and I and Hoodie all have an advantage now that we have this knowledge, um, but it can be disheartening. But overall, it's a positive thing.
Yeah, it has changed music for me, and it adds a different filter. You're kind of looking at it through a different filter. Like I've talked about the song "Mother" by Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd's
Yeah,
one of my
yeah,
favorite. Yeah, and it talks about something that Jordan Peterson has talked about a lot, which is the overbearing mom, and
yeah,
a home. Roger Waters, who is the one of the lead writers and Pink Floyd and performers, he uh he made an album, The Final Cut, and The Final Cut is about the war, but it's also about his father who died in the war in World War II. and the impact that being raised in a single mother's home, who she probably had agoraphobia, probably was extremely anxious all the time, and because of the death of her husband, and isolated him, and kept him close to her chest and didn't let him fly, as the song says. A lot of guys talk about that experience, not only just in a familial sense and in a micro sense within their family in MGTOW, but that is kind of a microcosm for society, because you're being
Yeah.
raised in a feminist society. It's like being raised in a home that, Roger Waters is referencing. So, I mean, wow, that adds a whole new lens to how I view one of my favorite songs,
Yeah. That's extremely powerful, especially the way you put it. So, because
That is a good point, dude. That is a
Yeah.
crazy good point if you think about it. The feminist society, we're all being raised in a single mother household, essentially.
Yeah, that's wild to frame it like that. A welfare single mother home or a society, it's like, and that's guys are being
Well, they brought
coddled.
it up in Fight Club too, but my problem
Yeah.
was I was around when Fight Club came out. I didn't see it till like last year. So, but they bring that shit up in Fight Club too.
Oh yeah, we've been raised in a society of women. We were wondering if another woman in our life is the answer that we really need.
Yeah.
Is what he says, and that's one of the most eye-opening scenes. He's sitting there in this absolutely decrepit bathroom, and he's like, "So, what do you think about your dad?" And he's like, "I didn't know my dad." And then Brad Pitt's character is like, "Yeah, my dad told me to go to college. When I graduate college, I said, Dad, what do I do now?" The story, but it's
Yeah.
that's it's crazy. That's going to be 20 years here.
Well, no, and that's to me that's I don't know. I really don't know how to say this, but it's to me that is one of the most important things of MGTOW. Not necessarily Fight Club, but men helping other men out. I mean, my father, yeah, he was in my life, but he wasn't there. He was a Vietnam veteran. He had a drug addiction, and great guy. I loved him. He had a great personality, very charismatic. Charismatic. I learned a lot from him, but ultimately, he didn't teach me a whole lot about life, And the good thing about the fucking internet now is we can help each other, and if I can help anybody out, just that's what I'm here to do. But so yeah, I don't know, kind of rambling on, but
No, I mean it's the truth though, and that a similar result can occur, or a father that a lot of fathers, even the baby boomer generation, grew up in or had their kids grow up with the father being present and maybe always being around and having a stable job and providing and being there at games and whatnot, but he was still run by the wife, definitely in the baby boomer generation. And for a male to be raised up and see that, they are going to emulate that. And, even being present, it doesn't always keep, you know, keep the son out of the same situation that would be created if he was raised with a single mother raising him, which is the frightening thing. And I think that a lot of fathers are doing that to their kids. A lot of
well,
fathers are living in fear that they have to kowtow to her, and the sons are getting the result of that kowtowing.
I guess that's the problem. I wish I would have. I don't know, man. If somebody had fucking sat me down when I was 10, 15, probably 15 years old and told me that I may not have listened to the MGTOW knowledge, but I would have rather had known the rules and said, okay, here you go. This is what's happening, and take my chances or not, versus just going in fucking blind like I did. But um,
That's the silver lining of today's situation, though, because if you had heard this stuff at 15 back in your day, you probably
Yeah.
wouldn't have listened because things weren't as bad. They were still bad, but they weren't what they are today. And now, if a 15-year-old kid hears the MGTOW message and then he looks outside and he sees the feminist marches and the STD rates and the single motherhood rates, and he sees it with his own eyes, now he can accept it at an earlier age.
Yeah.
That's I think that's the
Yeah.
silver
true.
lining of everything that's going on today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's the thing. It's the soil has been tilled a little bit, in all the guys'
Yeah.
lives. The soil, their birth and they're growing up, and the soil is being tilled for it to be accepted and for it to grow. Whereas before, I think that's a really fair and self-effacing assessment that you make, Rev, is because like it's like this necessary curve that we're on. As time went up, it's like a direct relationship. As time's gone on, it's become more necessary. MGTOW has more quickly resonated, and so to say, yeah, if I were to hear that when I was 15, I probably would say this is maybe a little extreme. There has some merit, but I think I'm going to let things play out and go do my own thing.
Yeah.
I think that's very true. I think that is part of the reason why it's proliferating as much as it is now.
Well, and I'm hoping that guys are smarter than I was when I was, younger too, a teenager. But I know biology is very powerful. Maybe I was just extremely sexually hyperactive. I don't know, but things have calmed down. But yeah, I still think whether someone wants to go ahead with the blue pill stuff, they at least need to be educated. That's the way I feel. But they need a choice. But and from what you and the Hermit have said, it sounds like the fucking message is getting out there, and I hope it continues.
Yeah, I mean, it is getting out there, and it will get out there one way or another, whether or not it's through this platform we're currently using right now or through the same guys that are making content right now. I think that there's really no other way for the stream that is MGTOW. It has to find cracks, and it's occurring out of nature. This is where a lot of guys come to me and say, MGTOW is just a reaction, and that MGTOW is solely that. Yeah, of course, the popularity of MGTOW is reacting to what we're around, but it doesn't refute the fact that it wouldn't be as publicly known if it wasn't a positive, innate response, an innate element of being a man, like Hermit said earlier.
100.
100. Yeah. I don't know if I don't know if what do you remember, Hermit, that topic that I was touching on before we got on the air that I was said you need to bring that up?
Was it the positive message?
No, it was
MGTOW?
I think it was very specific. Um I think it had something to do with one of the topics that Rev initially brought up.
I'll
Yeah,
think about it. I'll
I
try to
talked about.
remember. What let me ask you guys this. What are your Sunrise, what's your plan for the channel? Do you have any long-term plans?
Yeah. Obviously continue to make content. The reason for it is I'm more of a writer by just who I am. I need this outlet intellectually, and I will continue to make content. But the biggest thing for me is morphing all of what I've written into some kind of coherent book, and then also morphing the testimonies that I've received from all the different guys that have gotten over hundreds of them.
I think
And
that's a great format. Yeah, because
yeah,
you're taking emails and putting them into the book, right?
yeah. So I'm doing that and then adding my own commentary along with it. And I also am really interested in kind of interviewing is one of my passions, and just going around and interviewing all the different MGTOW guys that I have contact with and I know of, and a lot of them, I know if talked to Human a little bit. I mean, not chatted, but he knows of me. Obviously, we talked. We all do that, and I want to interview them and say, make kind of a book of the evolution of, of MGTOW in their own eyes and what they've experienced, and just kind of the ins and outs and almost kind of the history of it in a sense, to paint a picture of it.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So I really have, those are my long-term passions, so yeah. How about you?
Yeah, same. I'm working on some books. I actually released a video a couple days ago. I showed off this MGTOW game I've been working on. It's important to get into as many mediums as possible because
Patreon.
it makes it it makes it as difficult as possible for them to expunge MGTOW. So if you have your book, I mean, that's out there, that's on Amazon or whatever format you publish it on. And I mean, a MGTOW game, they can't take that down. It's out there, so as many formats as possible. That I think that's the goal that MGTOW needs to survive as far as the community itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that game, that would be pretty awesome. I don't have those technical capabilities, but computer science abilities or coding. But um, I think that for me, it satisfies a creative hunger too. I think that you probably would say the same. It gives you a different push to make content every day and to consume more content.
Yeah, I
Uh,
love the process, dude. It's awesome. I
so it's
love
so
writing.
yeah, it gives back so much. It forces you to learn. And so for anybody to criticize MGTOW guys like us for making content that requires research and thought, it just goes back to the way society is. If you are saying that you're reading a book or you're into learning or studying and that's what you do in your free time, you're almost a pariah, And what does that say about society? Really, society has gone to the ooga booga, animalistic, primal nature almost to an extreme, and that's what's praised, and corn syrup is praised.
Yeah.
I mean, I get almost as much out of the channel as my viewers do because it helps keep me sane, because I can't talk about this stuff in real life. And if you have all these thoughts floating around and you can't express them, I think that's unhealthy. So it's definitely important to write. And for guys who don't even have channels, maybe start a journal or something and write your thoughts down. It's important to get that stuff, manifested into your reality.
Absolutely. Just start writing, that's what I did, and I think through writing. I don't necessarily think as clearly. I'm not as eloquent as I would like to be, in conveying some of the things that I write, and do whatever you need to do, even if it's not received by anybody. A lot of my first videos that I intended to make, they never actually became videos. Just start creating an outlet like that. And I think that one of the keys is, a lot of people obviously answer to other people in their daily life. They answer to people to earn the living, and that's the nature of the beast. They don't own anything. They don't own any intellectual property per se. And I think that making content and writing, it gives people something to own that they feel proud of, and that helps so many facets of your being in your life.
Definitely.
Yep. Hey,
Make your art. Yeah.
I well, I wanted to ask both you guys. I know we're approaching the 2 hour mark, and I know that's about to cut off for these streams. But I wanted to ask both of you guys if, in your opinion, and if you thought that, and like and not biblical or in general end times were related to MGTOW, because I've kind of associated that before with like the mouse utopia experiment, and then
Mhm.
Western society advancing, and I was just curious about your guys' opinion on that.
You can go ahead, Hermit. Say what you want.
So I'm not religious, but I've definitely read parts of the religious world texts. I've read parts of the Old Testament. I've read parts of the Quran and Buddhist texts and the Vedas. Um, I think a lot of the prophecies they have in those texts, they may not pan out exactly, but they still have good points. Um, what's the one? What is it? Sodom and Gomorrah. I think that is extremely relevant to
Yeah.
today's society. As far as the mouse utopia, that is, I think that's the big topic that I want to bring to my channel. Every MGTOW channel has his own unique point of view that he brings to the table. DDJ has the Duluth model, TFM has the sex doll and the
Yeah.
women's rights issue. I know Sunrise Hoodie puts like a Christianity spin on it, right? It's right. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Oh, yeah, I
it's
do.
it's everyone has their own perspective, and Mouse Utopia, I think we're gonna see that play out even more. And for those who don't know, basically it's like they threw mice in this closed society and they gave them all of the food and water and space they needed. So it was a utopia, and eventually they all went extinct. The female mice became hostile and masculine, and the male mice really divided into like violent alpha males and then like subservient beta males, and like an extreme division of that. And then you had the beautiful ones, which are mice who just left the society and just became hermits and just watched everything spiral out of control. So I think it's a perfect analogy for what's happening today. As far
That's
as
why I
end
thought it was
times,
relevant.
I know it's very
Oh,
scary.
yeah.
And I think for end times, I don't worry myself too much about it, because I think humanity's self-preservation instinct is strong enough to prevent outright extinction. I think there will be a collapse, and I've talked about this a little bit. I mean, everything in the last century has been the biggest in human history. We've had the biggest wars, we've had the biggest recessions, we've had the biggest economic booms, the biggest technological advances. Everything has been the biggest, so that naturally extends to the biggest collapse, the biggest loss of life, the biggest dark age in human history, if it follows that train of thought.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about like human extinction, but I can see that things are not sustainable the way they are. Um, I don't really. I'm not a prepper. I have a basic like go bag and some basic plans, but I'm not. If it gets to that point, I'm not really like too keen on um, fighting for that, because that's not really a civilization that's really worth living in. I mean, I'll leave the country, but besides that, that's. I think it'll be much more damaging than people realize. So
Yeah,
the
if it
end
gets down to
times,
that level, yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and I don't think MGTOW is contributing to that end times. I mean, it is a reactionary thing that is blowing up, but that's not MGTOW's fault. That's just men's natural self-preservation instincts saying, "I need to get the hell out of this situation." MGTOW is the best recourse.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you just take a step back and just look at how far we've gotten, like we're at the point in Western civilization where we have to have arguments about gender, and really
Yeah.
you can't go farther intellectually than that. You can't collapse farther than that. There's nothing else beyond that. If you can't acknowledge the most basic building blocks to life, then there really is no point past that. That's rock bottom. And I think that's how I judge society. If we're at that point, then it's already over, and
Well,
we're just we're in the end stages.
and that's my fear, is that society is at or not necessarily fear, but observation that our society is at an end, and are approaching the end. So I don't know.
And to dovetail, obviously that Mouse Utopia thing, it says so much, but it says so much about the individual and it says so much about society. At the individual level, you know, we produce a lot of dynorphin and positive chemical releases through struggle and pain, and you know, whether it's enduring cold temperatures, warm temperatures, accomplishing something that you know, that potentially threatened them, or you know, doing something difficult. You know, what we do now is we don't have to till the field and, you know, build homes and, you know, just work to get water every day. What we do instead is exactly what Hermit said. If there are no problems to face, we will create them ourselves. You know, our brains and our bodies have been proven to break down when there are no stressors, because what is the challenge? You know, what is the purpose? What is the daily pursuit? You know, and that's why happiness levels haven't been shown to be better in developed countries. Obviously, if you're starving on a daily basis, that definitely would skew the scales. But what I'm getting at there is there needs to become some kind of strife evident, you know, in life, and we end up having just nonsense and Twitter arguments and political commentary that is pointless, and that is because we're trying to recreate problems, and that's what we do. And
when there are none,
right.
So,
and and eschatologically, it does kind of line up with how I view things. That does influence a lot of the reason I don't want to have kids. Why would I bring them into something that is a modern day Babylon, in a sense? What happened to Rome? What happened to Babylon? You know? So, and I think part of it,
choice, man.
Yeah, part of it too is cyclical. I think this goes back to the yin and the yang thing. There's a balance, and there's a lot of the world works in cycles too. But I think that this is the Bible specifically references this a lot. Sodom and Gomorrah specifically was a commentary on sexual perversion, you know, and Jeremiah and Isaiah and Amos and Joel, and they're very eschatological books, and they talk specifically about feminism. We have Jezebel referenced specifically in the Old Testament, and what happened to Israel during that time was a country that was ruled, a people that was ruled while Ahab was a simp, you know, and it's the same illustration, you know, what happens, you know. So that's just my very basic take.
And that goes back to the same. This is nothing fucking new. This has been going on for human history.
Right.
So
it's nothing new under the sun. No doubt. Yeah. So
Roger that.
That was a good one. Any other brief things you guys want to say?
I mean, I really enjoy talking to other MGTOW guys. It's probably the best part of being in the community. So I appreciate it, Reverend and Sunrise.
Hell yeah.
Really enjoy talking to you guys, and I look forward to doing it again. So
yeah, absolutely. Likewise, Hermit. It's a very enriching experience. It makes it personal. And then Rev, thanks as always, man. You always do a good job of getting me back to stream and hooking me up with different content producers to talk. You know, that I appreciate that, man. You're a good dude. Yeah,
I'm the hype man. I'm the Ed McMahon.
I know you said that Ed McMahon action. You're living up to it. But no, yeah, guys. Obviously, check out both of their channels and stay up to date with that. Hermit's always grinding and always doing his streams as well. And yeah, we'll have to make it happen to some extent in the future again, and look forward to it. Thanks for checking in. We had a great group, around 160 all night, so I appreciate that, guys.
Right on.
All right.
Awesome. I'll see you guys later.
Yep. Hoodie's out.
Hey, good talking to you, man. Hermit and Sunrise Hoodie. Have a good night, man.
Likewise.